Hey guys, I'm here with the one and only Heather Harmstrong. Harmstrong?
Harmston.
Harmston, there you go. And there's a lot of, speculation about what's going to happen with the Airbnbs. Heather was at the Airbnb meeting that was held by the city a couple of weeks ago, and she's here to kind of clear the air and that stuff. I've had a few clients ask me, "Hey, Edgar, what's going to happen with the Airbnbs?" So she is, kind enough to be here and fill us in on what happened there. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
We're
It's,
so happy
it's
to
a
have you.
pleasure. Yeah, so basically, Airbnbs are very trendy right now. They've been trendy for the last couple of years since COVID, especially with the fact that the hotels were limiting their occupancy. So it was giving the city, which is a blessing for the city. Let's not forget that we were giving the city the opportunity to continue tourism with a place for people to stay because the hotels couldn't really accommodate. So there was a big surge in, I would say, like 2020 and now. So right now, what the city wants to propose is quite a few things that nationwide, yes, they are doing. Everybody's jumping on board to get more money for things.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are probably not going to fly here. And it's just a little bit out of the scope of what they're comparing us to. So, like, for example, right now, Airbnbs are fairly easy to get into. It's self-regulated. There's no governing body except Airbnb. Which can be good and bad. I think it is good, but I think it's bad for the wrong host, the people that don't understand that this is a hospitality business.
Right.
So, I'm on the fence about all of this, what's going on with Airbnb, because I do understand and see some topics that are relevant and fair were business owners. But I feel like they're really aggressively coming after Airbnb hosts for the wrong reasons. So the city, which it looks like this whole thing is being spearheaded by the city manager and his staff. And so he was the one that did the proposal.
The guy that makes $400,000 a year, right?
Yes, the really very well paid city employee.
Probably the highest paid city employee.
I think so.
Anyway,
I think so.
Anyway, but that's a different
I'll keep
conversation.
my opinion shut on that. But yes, so he led the presentation. His staff led the presentation. They basically compared El Paso to big, large cities in Texas, which is not reasonable
Right.
per se. Another thing is, so right now, okay, it's self-governing, and Airbnb is pretty much the person that
Regulating.
will give you a spanking if you do bad, but really it's a business based on reviews. So you have to be very aware of your Airbnb. You have to be very present to the
100%.
cleanliness, the location, the way it looks, the visibility. So Airbnb takes out taxes for us as owners to the state. I mean, we do pay taxes of some kind. We're going to pay taxes to the IRS. So that's one of the things that we do to already follow business standards. Another thing is that there's a surplus right now of Airbnbs. Like, I think there's a surge.
I'm gonna ask you, do you know how many Airbnbs we have in El Paso?
Oh, okay. So in their presentation, I believe that I want to say they stated there's about 1,800.
Okay, which is still not that bad.
It's not. I mean, it's not that bad. I don't really know if and they pulled data from Airbnb, from VRBO. I think that's the only two sites that they used. But they pulled some data that I really don't know how accurate that is either. And the good thing is that you cannot know the data because Airbnb will never release the address until you book. So all of these locations are hypotheticals because you only kind of know sometimes where it is in the proximity of the city, but you don't know the actual address. So the city cannot go in and like really get detailed on the location of the properties. But the biggest, so I think the meeting went pretty well. I was excited for how much support was on the host side. They allowed us to give presentations or talk for 3 minutes apiece. So there was, I think, 13 speakers that did talk and took that opportunity.
How many people showed up? I guess I'm just curiosity. So Heather is a local investor, and obviously she has Airbnbs or short-term rentals, so we were talking about this a little earlier. There's a lot of Airbnb or short-term rental hosts that have multiple properties.
Yes.
About how many people do you think were there at the meeting that were on the host side?
At the meeting, I would say it's tricky because there was different topics being discussed. Like there was some awards being given away by the city. There was like your everyday
Okay, so it was a different.
monthly, because I don't know if they meet once a month or once a week, but their topics of discussion. So we were just a piece of that
right,
of that presentation.
Part of the meeting.
I would say like for Airbnbs, maybe the at least 40. I think there was at least 40 people. And I thought it was a good, I really did think it was a good indication of what people talked about and what people brought up, where it was very good quality information.
So what is the concern that the city has with these Airbnbs? I mean, what is there, I guess, not complaint, but I mean, you would think that this came about because somebody probably was complaining or somebody was, I mean, there was things that need to be regulated aside from the owner's pockets. You
Right.
would think, you know what I mean?
Right. So I guess I don't know if there's been major complaints by specific people, by specific corporations. I don't know that. They
Neighborhood
didn't really
Watch,
release
HOAs.
that information. They did release information on code compliance and things like that, which is great because another person on our behalf spoke and said that, out of the 1,700 code compliance reports listed on your report, how many of them were short-term rentals? Because to be quite honest, when it comes to short-term rentals, which is a really good point of topic, we're going to treat our investments better than our houses.
100%.
We're going to pick our weeds, we're going to hire somebody, we're going to pay that expense.
On a clean on a daily basis.
Yeah, we're going to make the neighborhood look nice and clean because that goes to our reviews. So I like the fact that was discussed, the fact that the pride of ownership was discussed. Right now, let's backtrack a little. The proposal that they're proposing, I guess, I don't know every specific detail, but the main concerns are financial responsibilities from us that we're already paying, and also another rule about proximity. So the first thing is that the city wants to impose quite a few different taxes. The hot tax, which is hotel occupancy tax, which we are not hotels. We don't get those kickbacks. We don't get those tax incentives. So unless you want to provide those to us, I don't see the relationship between that. The second thing is another tax on top of what we pay. The city is mad because the state gets those taxes from Airbnb, which is ironic because that's probably where they should be seeking those taxes. But obviously, it's easier for the city to go after its community rather than the state because that's a bigger fish to fry. So they're kind of taking that tax and throwing it on us because they're crying that they're not getting any.
So they want their,
They want to they want to be the middleman that gets the money and not the state. So really, they don't have the state's best interest in their mind either, but they don't have the community's best interest either. They have their own interest.
And an interesting thing would be, I mean, if you guys are going to get taxed, another tax, because Airbnb is still going to charge you for that state tax. Now the city wants to put another tax on you guys. Are they going to give you a break as taxpayers for the property?
And that's the thing I don't know because we pay more. See, these are the things that people forget. We pay more in general because we cannot file homestead exemption on our taxes. So whenever anybody's getting homestead tax exemption, they file and they get a little tax break. I cannot get a tax break on any of mine Airbnbs because they're not my homesteads. So I'm already paying more than I should when that's another thing that's a question right now is like we already pay so much in taxes.
And that could be thousands. The difference can be a few thousand,
Oh, for
depending on
sure.
the size of the property, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but the real biggest problem that I've seen that most people have seen in their proposal is there's a clause in there or a little indicator of something that says you cannot have an Airbnb within 500 feet of another Airbnb. That is the number one problem that was addressed, pushed, and I think the board in general did a very good job of bringing things to light that they weren't for or against this. They were just getting information because I don't think the board is on board with it. With how it's presented right now, how it's formulated right now, all the data is too vague. Number one, it's too hypothetical. And number two, it really would kill everybody's business because, for example, this is what they're proposing. I have a multi-unit. I have 4 units in one property. So what they're proposing is that you cannot have one Airbnb within 500 feet of another. That makes no sense for multi-units because we are all within that close proximity. Also, that's how a lot of people run their businesses. It's easier to maintain, it's easier to upkeep, it's easier
Lower
to
cost.
get your cleaners out there in one property. I mean, it's so much more
Makes sense. Makes business sense.
accessible. Yeah, it's great, and it's a great way to use your investment wisely. So a lot of people have that kind of scenario. They might have a main house and then a back house. So those are the complications of like what I saw. The other thing is that you cannot regulate that. You cannot regulate, like if you own a house and I'm your neighbor and I own a house and maybe I decide I want to get into Airbnb. Maybe I don't even know you're into Airbnb just yet. You're applying for your so-called permit that you're going to get. And then I want to spend the renovation money to turn my property into an Airbnb. And then they're going to say, oh, well, only one of you can have it. You know, there's no way to fairly, I mean, I could see that as like a huge discrimination thing if they want to take it that far. I don't know. I mean, there's no way to regulate who is allowed to have one and who's not, you know, and especially people that have already had theirs, are we going to be grandfathered in? Because we've spent, I mean, it costs thousands of dollars to furnish the properties. It costs thousands of dollars to make it short-term rental ready. It costs thousands of dollars to upkeep it. I mean, it costs a lot of money that we've already spent. Right. And we're not going to get our money back until, you know, it's over time.
Of course.
So there's a lot of issues with how they presented their reasonings. Oh, another thing that I was not happy with is that they presented one case of a crime that happened at a short-term rental, an assault. That's all they mentioned. They said it was a serious assault, which I'm assuming maybe somebody got, you know, injured that was a guest. They didn't release that information, but I can only assume that maybe a guest got injured. But it leads me to think, okay, well, let's just go back into all the local crimes and all the local crimes committed in regular rentals and regular homeowners. How are you going to take such a minute percentage and say, oh, well, now we have a problem with short-term rentals? Also, who committed the crime? Was it a local? Because if it was a local, you can't even use that. It's just hypocritical, because if you use it, that's the local's problem, not the short-term guest problem, you know? So I think there's a lot of misguidance. I don't know what the real, I mean, besides financial reimbursement, that's the only thing that I can think of is just behind. I mean, everybody wants to make more money. That's the city for you. But in my opinion, I don't think that there's enough real authentic data to get it passed the way that it is. I hope. And it didn't seem like all the board members were on board the way that it is. I did very much appreciate how the board was vocal about their concerns about how it was written. A lot of the members stood up and kind of discussed comparisons to their own neighborhoods and, you know, their own neighbors that take, you know, crappy care of their properties. And then,
shitty care.
Yeah, it's like, why can I say that word? Real bad conditions. And then, you know, but what kind of ramifications do they have besides getting fined by the city? I don't even, and that would be actually a good topic to look at, is like how many short-term rentals have gotten code compliance fines. Because I bet you there's none, or very, very minimal, you know?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, being in this business, we see that long-term rentals are way more neglected than a short-term rental.
Exactly.
I mean, how many times do you have a long-term rental where, you know, the property management company is not as on hands as they should be, and you have a tenant that's been there for a year, 2 years, there's weeds outside, there's trash outside, there's maintenance going on in cars,
or it's even
oil
in the
stains.
lease. It's even in the lease that the tenant themselves have to maintain the condition of the
100%.
property. Because I've had that before with a
100%.
lot of my rental clients, and nobody's monitoring them, nobody's checking in on them, and then, you know, even the fine will get passed to the owner, knowledge or not. The tenant's not going to get the fine because there's no way of knowing that the tenant is the person occupying the property.
Or responsible for that maintenance as per the lease.
Yeah. So it's like the owner always gets the short end of the stick because that's the risk that they take. But, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, you can go through anybody's short-term rental here in El Paso, and there's probably not going to be but just a handful that don't look that nice.
100%. And you can take those odds to Vegas because honestly, that's what makes you guys a super host, having the property clean, making sure that you are attentive to the tenant, making sure that everything is there readily available, that they need batteries at 3 o'clock in the morning, or if it's, a lights out on the front or whatever, you guys need to take care of that stuff. And with a long-term rental, that's not the case.
Oh, yeah.
And if they want, it's something that I was, is just, if they want short-term rental owners to pay a fee to be able to get their permit to rent, I mean, will this escalate to long-term rentals too? Are they going to ask any and all landlords, if you have a traditional rental, are they going to start asking you to pay a permit to be able to rent it? I mean, where does this stop? I mean, we were talking earlier, we already paying probably some of the highest, not probably, with certainty, some of the highest property taxes in the nation. I was looking at the top 10 list, and we make that list. We're like in the top 3, I believe. We pay 3 and at some percentage property taxes per year, and that's insane. I mean, on top of this, we have homeowners trying to make a living with maintaining a nice property that is able to host people and stuff like that. And now you're going to tax them again on a different tax with the with that sales tax or city tax plus that permit per year.
Yeah.
Where does it stop? And I think as a community, whether we have an Airbnb or not, I think it's important that we are aware of these things and how they want to tax our community yet another way.
Oh yeah. I mean, just this weekend, like I was downtown and I saw the trolley being loaded onto the to the trolley rails. I don't know what you call them, and I thought to myself, what a waste of money. I mean, and it's cute. It's a cute idea. It's a cute idea, but the operational cost of that thing is not so cute. And the fact that you have to have maintenance constantly, be working on that, there's always problems. Why don't they take some of the money that they poured into that project and give it back to the actual community business owners? So that was a great topic too that a lot of people brought up, was like, we are small business owners, and we thought and felt that we had the support of the community.
Good.
And that if they impose this kind of thing on all of us, you're going to lose a huge portion of your small business owners. And
which is a significant factor of our community. We have a lot of local owners, local business here.
yeah, like I really do understand certain key points, and I do understand the business behind it, and I'm not angry about the idea of a proposal because it is not new. It started being, I think 2021 is when I saw more changes on like my Superhost groups online and stuff, because I have friends that are all over the nation that I can see in what's issues, and right now, to be honest, the issues are really the guests, because the guests are getting smart, the guests are getting savvy, they know how to get discounts, they know how to get their money back. If it's not spick and span clean, it's like they get a little shady about trying to cheat the owner and the host. So that's kind of something we have to deal with all on our own right now. But I just feel like there's just better ways to approach this situation, because I'm not opposed for everything. I'm not opposed to every item that they brought up. I'm opposed to some key items that would dramatically affect the business.
What do you think would be some good things that this regulation would benefit?
I think there's always going to be good and bad apples in every industry, and I think for sure that Airbnb can be very lucrative. It can be very trendy. It can be very cool, just like real estate. It's like you always get people that think it's this lifestyle, and it ain't. Okay, so I feel like it will help a little bit in keeping the right people in the business. And yes, I do feel like if you have an Airbnb that you're running poorly, that you do have a lot of noise complaints, things like that, parties, yeah, maybe you should get a slap on the wrist. But I don't think you should tie it into everybody's business. I've never had any problems at mine. The funniest thing is I have had a problem with a neighbor at one point due to some parking, because my guests were kind of parking a little close to her house on a street in Central. And she made my life hell for a while, because she would go and harass my guests, knock on the doors, make them move their cars, or tell them, she told them, yes, we're going to have your car towed if you don't move it. And I'm like, I'm not going to say it, but I was pissed, I had to file harassment charges on her. I had to file trespassing on her, because it was her and her daughters, and they would just go and I'm like, this is not New York. I already pay for parking through my property taxes. I was like, if they're not blocking your driveway, I know all the rules. They were very difficult. So I was having a problem with that. So you could probably see my complaint in the city and see it was against a local, against my neighbor. So, I mean, I think it's money driven. There is a tiny bit of regulation that I can see. But besides that, I think it's just all money driven.
Okay. So do you see it happening in the next year or so?
No. Well, right now it's like in its infancy stages, so I think there's so much more research development needed to like actually get something to stick. I don't foresee a couple of the items even passing anything because I really don't think you could regulate them. Cool. And you brought up that point about, well, how far are they going to take it long term, things like that. How would you even know? How, you know, nobody, what is that city survey that they do, the census? I mean, those aren't even accurate, you know, and you hire thousands of people to do that, and they're still not accurate. So I don't foresee that the city has the manpower, the budget to tackle that kind of stuff. But I feel like right now there's still discussions up until March. At different locations, different representatives will be at the discussions to hear our voices, and I think after that, I want to say that they might revisit the topic in March, is what I think, or in the spring sometime. But to say that that's where it's going to pass or not pass, I don't know. It's really too early to know.
If you were to find a location that would make a good Airbnb, would you buy it or would you not buy it, thinking that this might change?
I'd probably still buy it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a risk taker, and so I would buy it with obviously multiple possibilities to figure out if I can't keep it. I mean, I would not buy something that I couldn't eventually sell if I needed to.
Of course, but then again, that would be a precaution that you would take whether this law passes or not, right?
Yeah. So I think if I feel like it's a good deal and if it's set up for that, and I wanted to take on more capacity, I would do it, and just cross my fingers that it works out for me. But I really would keep an option of, okay, well, if I can't use it as this, am I still going to make money as just a regular long-term rental? Am I still going to make money if I flip it? Like, I would have multiple options. So.
And then again, there's a lot of short-term rentals that aren't even Airbnb and VRBO. Like I think there's one like Neighbor or something is for like nurses and stuff. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, there's a couple different apps, and that's why I feel like it's just difficult to monitor. It's different. It's difficult to really get accurate data as well, and just to keep getting that accurate data. I'm sure that El Paso's looking to other cities as far as how they're taxing, how they're doing this. And like I said, if everybody's doing it, I get it. I think they're jumping on the train a little too fast, and I think that they've got to hone it down a little because they're really getting very greedy about who they're taxing, who they're supporting, who they're pitching, you know, this false sense of support. Because if you're going to continue to say that El Paso bases their community on small businesses, you have to actually do what you say. Yeah. And it is a small business. I mean, I don't think there's any developers. I don't think there's any corporations that have a large amount of Airbnbs here.
For sure. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Is there anything you want to add?
I mean, if you become an Airbnb host, do it properly. Don't put a bad name on the industry. It's hospitality. Don't get mad if you get complaints about cleaning or things. Just take it as it is. Just do a good job in your business. But
would you mind sharing your telephone number just in case somebody has a question regarding?
Who wants to? Don't blow up my phone, guys.
I mean,
of course.
You can call me and I can read it.
Of course, I'm gonna screen your calls though. It's 915-317-2836. Cool.
Well, there you have it. If you have any questions,
and if I have some stalkers after this, I'm not gonna be happy.
We can just, tell you what, we can cut that out. Anyway, so that's what's happening, guys. So I don't think there's a sense to alarm yourself with it.
Not right now. It's too
not
soon.
Right now. Yeah, it's too
I mean,
soon.
it is on the radar.
Right.
But to freak out, worry, there's just no way to know right now.
Right. Right. So, and the good thing is that you guys have the support of the board members, so which is
Yeah,
huge.
I think the board, I was pleasantly surprised. And also, I think that they come from an investing standpoint, they come from a community standpoint. So I think maybe their motives are different than the city managers or the entity that's representing. I don't know who's really spearing this, but I think they do really they look out for their community.
Cool. All righty. Well, thank you so much for coming out here. We
You're welcome.
appreciate you filling us up on that stuff because I know it's been a topic of discussion and I guess a topic of some people that are kind of like on the fence about should I do it, should I not?
Yeah.
This what's gonna happen.
Just have multiple avenues if you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say to any investor right now is don't go in, and even right now it's kind of slowed down. The roller coaster of occupancy has been a little bit difficult, especially because of the saturation. So just really see if it's something that you want to try and get into, and if not, just make sure you have some other way to get out of it.
Right. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. All
You're
right, guys. If
welcome.
you have any questions, give us a holler, and that's pretty much it for now. So don't freak out. Don't. It's not the end of the world. It's not gonna change the Airbnb or short-term rental industry in our city overnight. I think it's something that's gonna happen gradually, and with the support of the community, we'll make sure that it happens in a responsible way that does not affect our small business owners as much as it might. So that's pretty much it, right? Alrighty, guys. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.